Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're taking a look into the story of Samantha Koenig. Samantha was kidnapped and murdered, and the search for Samantha's whereabouts would lead authorities to a monster. Little did people and authorities of Anchorage, Alaska know a serial killer was in town, and it was Samantha Koenig's disappearance that would lead them to him. So let's get started. Samantha Koenig was an 18-year-old girl from Anchorage, Alaska. She had brown eyes, she was a brunette, and people described her as someone with a bubbly personality and a beautiful smile. She was friendly and she loved being around people. Samantha worked as a barista at the Common Grounds Espresso coffee stand. She was very exciting for getting this job, even though her father wasn't keen on the idea because she worked alone at night. So Samantha eased him in the idea, saying the stand had surveillance cameras and a panic button in case she needed help. But Samantha had no idea what was lurking around the corner. Little did she know her demise was coming soon. On February 1st, 2012, Samantha was working until closing time, 8 p.m. She was wearing a long-sleeved lime green shirt. Samantha that day didn't have a car, and her boyfriend was supposed to give her a ride home. The night was cold, it was dark, and it snowed. As her shift was close to the end, a customer arrived at the stand at 7:55 p.m. He asked Samantha for an Americano, and Samantha made the drink. When she handed the cup to the customer, he pulled a gun on her and told that was a robbery. But it really wasn't robbery. That was an excuse for something more creepy. This guy had a different plan for Samantha, even before he got to the stand. The man told Samantha to turn off the lights, and she did. Ironically, right next to the light switch, there was a panic button, but Samantha didn't press it. The thief ordered Samantha to get on the floor, and then he got inside the stand. He tied Samantha's hands with plastic zip ties. He then stayed down for a few minutes, making sure no one was coming. He asked Samantha if she had a car, and she said no. He then forced Samantha to walk out of the stand, and at that moment, that wasn't just a robbery. That was Samantha Koenig's kidnapping. As Samantha and her kidnapper walked through the parking lot, he found a camera on the floor. He bent to pick it up, and at that moment Samantha broke away and ran, but he chased her. He tackled her to the ground, and then he pointed the gun at her, saying he would kill her if she didn't cooperate. And Samantha did. The two walked to a parking lot where his truck was, and his truck had been prepared for that moment, that kidnapping. Samantha climbed into the passenger seat, and he drove away. In a twisted fate, he stopped at a red light, and a police car stopped next to Samantha. But she didn't say anything. The light turned green, and the police car drove away. Apart from the panic button, that was Samantha's second chance to warn someone. She never did, unfortunately. He told Samantha the kidnapping was just for ransom. Samantha told him her family didn't have much money, and he told her he expected they would raise money for the ransom. He told Samantha if she cooperated, she would be let go. Samantha believed him, but his promises were fake. He decided he wanted to ask for the ransom using Samantha's phone. He realized she didn't have it, so he drove back to the coffee stand. He got her phone and then sent a text message to Samantha's boyfriend and her boss. He wanted to make it look like she had left town for the weekend, and then he pulled the battery out of the phone. He drove Samantha to his home. He waited until there was no one outside, and he got Samantha out of the truck, walked her into a shed in the backyard. He turned the music real loud. He then took a rope and tied around Samantha's neck and then screwed it to the wall. He asked Samantha for her debit card, and she told him it was in the truck she shared with her boyfriend. He asked her for her address, which she gave him. Then he drove there. and got the card. He was almost caught by Samantha's boyfriend, but when Dwayne went to get help, he ran to his truck. Then he drove to an ATM machine to check if the PIN Samantha gave him was correct. Then he returned to the shed. He assaulted Samantha. He then strangled her to death. Then he wrapped her body in a tarp and stuffed her in a cabinet in the shed. It was very cold, so Samantha's body would be preserved. And there she stayed, frozen for 2 weeks. Later that month, on February 2012, he retrieved Samantha's frozen body. He applied makeup to her face to make it look like she was alive. And then he took a Polaroid picture of her tied up, and also in the picture it showed his arm holding the Anchorage Daily News from February 13, 2012. He photocopied the photo and used a typewriter to write a ransom demanding $30,000, and he demanded the money to be placed in Samantha's card. He then placed a photo and a note in Connor's dog park under a memorial flyer of a dog named Albert. He sent a text to Samantha's boyfriend using her phone saying the ransom was at the location he put the note, and the police went there to retrieve it. A few days later, Samantha's body was cut into pieces. He went to Matanuska Lake. He cut a hole in the icy lake and laid Samantha's body in the lake where she would rest for several weeks. Samantha's father was able to get the ransom money with the help of the community, and he deposited the money in the account connected with Samantha's ATM card. The authorities followed the trail of withdrawals from the card, and that's how they planned to catch the kidnapper. They eventually were aware through ATM surveillance cameras that the person using the card had a white Ford Focus. At this time, he was in Texas. Authorities in Texas were warned about the white Ford Focus, and eventually a Texas Highway Patrol officer spotted that car. The officer followed him, and he took advantage of the fact that he was over the speed limit. So the officer told him to stop the car. He asked for a driver's license, and then he realized he had an Alaskan driver's license. The officer called for backup. They got information that gave them probable cause to search the car. They found Samantha's phone in the car and Samantha's ATM in his wallet. He was arrested, and then he realized they had proof he was the kidnapper. He confessed killing Samantha and told the authorities where Samantha's body was. Then on April 1st, 2012, FBI divers recovered the body of Samantha Koenig from icy waters of Matanuska Lake in Anchorage, Alaska. Following several interviews with the man who had kidnapped and killed Samantha Koenig, authorities realized he was a monster. He had killed before. He had robbed banks. He had no remorse for the crimes he had committed. The people he killed were nothing but objects to him. He was described as a methodical serial killer, and indeed he was. He's probably the most organized serial killer I've ever heard of. His name was Israel Keys.